I have a little creepypasta, real life, sort of thing that happened to me whenever I was younger. So,
Folks, this is creepy. I'm not making this shit up at this point. This will creep you out. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah, if you don't like dolls, you might want to leave this video now because this is about a porcelain doll.
You can
That
already tell it's a Chucky slasher. Sorry.
it's not a Chucky slasher, but it is creepy nonetheless. Okay, so this is an experience that haunted my dreams for most of my young teenage years. I'm the oldest child in a split family. On my dad's side, we have my stepsister and half brother. On my mom's side, we have my half sister and the twins, a boy and a girl. This takes place at my dad's house during a big ice storm we had in 2006. My stepsister, Alexis, loved baby dolls, couldn't get enough of them. She had at least 14 of them at any given time. She really liked the ones that when you tilt them, their eyes open and close. Now, Alexis and I used to share a room with a bunk bed, and these dolls would be everywhere, on the shelves, on the floor, in her bed. The room was full of them. She had one particular favorite that she always slept and played with, and she had lovingly named it Molly. Molly was a beautiful porcelain girl with rosy cheeks, a pretty red dress, and dark hair done up in a little red bow. Her eyes open and closed like most of the other dolls and were a deep shade of chocolate brown. One night, Molly wasn't on the top bunk with Alexis. We had been snowed in for about 2 days, lost power the night before, and she had been playing with her dolls nonstop the entire time because that was pretty much the only thing she could do to keep herself entertained. I don't know if she forgot or just lost interest in the doll, but for whatever reason, she wasn't sleeping with it. I was lying awake trying to fall asleep as I watched the snow falling outside our window when something weird happened. I heard a small click, like someone turning on the light switch, and I turned my head to see what it was. I thought it may have been a mouse, but the first thing my eyes met was Molly, sitting up against the wall and facing the bed with her eyes open, shining like glass. This is nothing new, as most of the dolls were sitting up against the wall in a similar fashion. When I didn't see or hear anything unusual, I turned back over and resumed my efforts to sleep. Only a few minutes passed when I heard the same click again. So I turned back around and looked around the room. Nothing had changed, so I figured it must have just been my tired mind playing tricks on me. I realized something was wrong when I started to feel really strange. Even to this day, I can't really describe it. It was like a pressure, sort of like the feeling of being watched, but it was more intense. It was like it was all over the place. And I looked up to make sure Alexis wasn't staring at me from the top bunk because she tended to do that fairly often, especially in the morning. But she was fast asleep amid a pile of her baby dolls. So I started to feel nervous and looked toward the window. The glass was frosted over, but I could still see the flecks of snow casting shadows across the glass. I looked back over to the dolls, particularly Molly. I'm still not sure what I saw, but something about her was different. It was like she was staring right through me with those eyes like glass. I got up and laid her down on the floor so that her eyes would close. Once I was satisfied that she would no longer stare at me, I laid back down. Not 10 minutes later, I heard the same damn click again, and this time I sat up. Molly's eyes were open. At this point, I was really starting to freak out. I know that the reason the doll eyes close when you lay them down is because they're weighted in one spot, causing them to turn and expose the eyelid. Knowing this, I got really creeped out, so I got out of the bed a second time and picked the doll up. I gave her a shake, but her eyes didn't close. I jiggled them with my fingertips and discovered that they had jammed open for whatever reason. Now, being unstuck, they opened and closed normally. I set her down facing the wall this time and got back to bed. I finally fell asleep, but all the while I had nightmares about those eyes staring at me. When I woke up the next morning, which it was, like 6:30, it was still kind of dark out. So I turned over and nearly crapped my pants. Molly was not only sitting up, but she was turned towards me and her eyes were staring right at me. Alexis was still asleep, but I was wide awake at this point. I nervously got out of bed, went out to the kitchen, and started getting a bowl of cereal. There was no way I'd be going back to sleep. That evening, Alexis was playing with Molly, but looked a little sad. I asked her what was wrong, and she stated that Molly's eyes were stuck open and she couldn't get them to close anymore. I told her that they probably just got jammed again and asked to see the doll. I fiddled around with the eyes, but I ended up popping one into the doll's head. Not only did I get yelled at for breaking the doll, but Alexis still wanted to keep it. I tried to talk her out of it, tried to influence her to just throw it away or give it to Nana, but she wouldn't listen to me. Instead, she decided to make sure that it was always sitting in the floor facing me like some sick form of punishment. There was no way I could go to sleep that night. The doll was even creepier with an eye missing. The hollow black void where it used to be was just it stared at me with even more intensity than the eye that was still intact. My young mind went wild with horror stories, and I was unable to sleep for hours until my exhausted mind finally gave up. I got up, turned the doll around, and went to bed. That same night, I woke up again. It was somewhere between midnight and 2, I'm guessing, and I heard a faint rattling, like someone rolling a marble around in a bowl. Um, I turned over, and I was kind of scared to see what horror awaited me. Molly was, again, sitting upright and facing me. The other eye was gone, leaving just the black eye holes to stare at me. At this, I screamed and ran out of the room. Alexis, Dad, and my stepmom all woke up and found me huddled in the corner of the kitchen, hiding under the counter with a meat fork clutched tightly in my hands. I was crying because I was so scared, and while my parents laughed it off as my tired, imaginative mind making things up, Alexis saw it when she woke up and immediately took the doll outside, throwing it out into the snow. When we got up the next morning, we found that a frozen branch had fallen from our spruce tree and crushed the doll, leaving just a mess of broken porcelain and ruined red cloth. But we never found the eyes.
Okay. Personally, when I read this, it kind of scared the crap out of me a little bit when I got to the part about the eyes. I had a bad experience when I was younger about with dolls, personally. Um, I say this because my mom, my real mom, I have a stepmom too. Um, my mom, she used to collect Barbie doll figurines, and we're not talking about the little, handheld ones. No, we're talking about the bigger ones. And she even got into the old-fashioned Victorian dolls, the ones like what Katie's talking about here, with the ones the eyes roll. Um,
Mm.
she had a few, and a couple of them were pretty old. The oldest one she had was one in an Indian dress. Uh, the doll was in okay position, but again, it was missing an eye, and my brother was absolutely terrified of this shit. My older brother, um, his name was Mitch, but for the sake,
Porcelain dolls are just creepy if they're missing
yeah,
anything.
but he would always freak out, and I'm not saying this to pick on the poor guy. I mean, seriously, he's got enough problems right now as it is, but he used to always, before he could go to sleep, he always had to close the closet. And this is what this reminded me of because there was one night my brother woke up and he swore the closet opened up and inside there was the Indian doll looking at him.
Ugh. Yeah, see, like stories with dolls freak me out ever since the Molly incident. Um,
It's 'cause
I
dolls are
I
the
don't like
closest visual
dolls.
representation that we as humans have to other humans.
Most importantly, children, and anything
Now
like anything that corrupts children is like somewhat frightening or unsettling to us.
now you're the author of this. Um
Yeah.
and you said this is based off a real event. So
Yep.
technically, we can't call this one a creepy pasta, but technically it is because you did make it.
Yeah.
Um,
I wrote it, I posted it and whatnot.
a link to this will be in the description so you all can read it yourself. And yeah, I'm gonna scare the crap out of yourselves if you want to. In conclusion, would you say there was anything awkward this whole time while it was going on? I mean, since this is based off a real event, would there have been one point where you realized something wasn't right?
Oh, I knew something wasn't right as soon as the freaking doll started sitting up and looking at me.
It sat up. Did you
Yeah.
see it sit up?
No, I didn't see it sit up, but when you and your sister are the only people in the room, and your sister is in the top bunk asleep and a doll just suddenly moves,
Yeah,
like changes
something ain't right at
position.
that point.
Yeah.
um, all that aside, what would you say? Could you have said it was your sister probably messing with you a little bit?
There's, I don't think there's any
Hold on.
way that she would have done that because she was asleep.
Hmm. Well, I'll give my thoughts, and Katie's probably gonna rage at me, but you know what? Personally, if this had been by anyone else, I would have not believed them that this was based on a real event. I would have probably laughed off the notion, yeah, real.
After wetting your
After wetting my
pants.
pants about the doll. But no, coming from you, you sound genuine, and it probably did happen. So, people who are watching this, I want them to be the judge. What would they rate this? Personally, this is based off a true event. I would give this pretty much a 4 out of 5. I mean, simple things in it were simple things caught me, but other than that, it was really good and really unnerving. And hell, it's based off real life, so you can't get any creepier than that. Anyway, this is DSG and Dark Watch, and
And Katie.
and we're signing off this crazy train. We got more shit to do, and pay attention. We might do more as well with me and Demon.